majority of females don't understand, and that is just what is a healthy menstrual cycle. So obviously most women think it needs to be 28 days. Of course, that's not true. That's just the average of what sits in a healthy range. But yeah, if we could, probably be a good idea just to clarify before we move on, like what actually is a healthy menstrual cycle? What's the range? What's the kind of blood flow? What are the symptoms?
Yeah, so I think with a healthy cycle, obviously the textbook is 28 days, but really it can vary anything from like 21 to like 42 days, right? Like it's not, I think the regularity point, the variation is quite important to consider. So typically you're looking at a variation of 7 to 9 days between cycles, between your individual cycles, and that is still considered normal and not like late or early. And of course, as you go through your life, when you hit menarche, you're going to be less regular. You will have, kind of a few changes until your body settles down into this routine. And then that variation of 7 to 9 days basically kicks off. I guess with periods, you typically would bleed for anything from like 1 to 6 or 7 days. The blood loss, again, it's being investigated in terms of what is heavy bleeding, because you would only hear from anecdotal evidence mainly in terms of the number of like tampons people use, or but you've never really we haven't got the science really to like go and like dissect from from the tampons. If I then extracted all the blood, like how much would come out and what that variation is all quite complicated. But I think from an individual's perspective, to know that women are quite good at gauging whether they are heavily bleeding or not, because relative to themselves, right? And I think really it does correlate quite a lot with the fatigue aspect. So you got to be like understanding, in terms of like how does that play a role in fatigue when you are bleeding heavy, because obviously there's like iron loss from blood. And stuff like that. So, I think the ovulation piece is also, very individual. Like typically they just put in like, okay, day 14, you are ovulating. But that is, I think the next level of that curiosity piece that women should go after, which day and are you actually ovulating? Because you can have a menstrual cycle, like you can get a regular period, but you can feel pretty like not okay through the cycle, and it may be because you're not ovulating, because you need a lot of energy to then again produce that egg and mature it like every month or so. So I think definitely looking at when someone can ovulate, it can be somewhere between like kind of day 9 up to until like whatever it is, like day 20 even, really depending on your cycle length, but it's not always just in the middle. And it can change through that window. So it's also the other sign of being in good health, right? Because you need that surge to happen every month. So I think there's these two big elements. The two triggers that you can really track for yourself are definitely the period and the ovulation. And when you have those two things, you can really start to piece together a lot of what is normal.